Well, hey kids, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to put a left rear wheel bearing on our 1994 Cutlass Supreme Convertible that you've seen in the other episode, introducing this vehicle from the Smith Motor Works fleet. Not a really difficult task, but there are a couple things that you need to watch out for, and we're going to point them out to show you maybe some specialty tools that you might need and some struggles that you might have in taking it apart, because it seems like an easy job, but you know how that goes. You spend a whole lot of time doing those easy jobs. So, thanks for watching. Let's get started. All right, I went ahead and got the wheel off, get this supported on a jack stand underneath the control arm here, safely. Really need to see all that. That's pretty straightforward stuff. What we're doing is putting a new hub on this. You can see possibly, Moog, but it doesn't matter which brand you use. I don't want to do this twice. I try to get something that is a sort of a reputable brand, but this is what you should have pulled out of the box here. A little bit of unboxing moment. This piece right here. So you got the cartridge bearing and the wheel studs, hub itself, and the reason we're replacing it right here, the vehicle speed sensor. None of this is serviceable. It's serviceable as a unit. So if any of these things go bad, you got to replace the whole thing. Which in my case, wheel bearing probably okay, but speed sensor is not. So got to change the whole thing. It's 4 bolts, but to get to those 4 bolts, you gotta tear it down a little bit. There you can see the holes on the flange there. So like you said, got it up on the jack stand here. What I've done off camera that you didn't see is this caliper. Pretty typical setup here. Got a mounting bracket that holds the pads, and the caliper is just the piston and the frame itself with the hydraulics in it. This one's kind of nice because the slide pins, one of them just slides on. The other one is also the only bolt that holds the caliper on. So I pulled that off. That went in through here. It's going to be facing away from you, but the bolt head was pointed inward like that. It's 10 millimeter cross flats. Crank that thing out of there, and the whole caliper kind of swivels out of the way, and it's, prepare for it to be kind of stiff. What we're going to do, because you can disconnect the parking brake line and anything else, kind of swing it up out of the way, and it's on that slide pin up there, and you can just kind of push it off here, which it's going to want to fight us here because I'm not disconnecting everything. So let me do that, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, I did go ahead and disconnect that parking brake cable. Hanging back here in the distance. It's seen better days. But pretty much this slides through this eyelet here, holds the cable, and then the end of the cable that moves feeds through that and hooks onto this little lever here, and that cranks the piston forward to apply the brakes. You basically just kind of take the tension off of this spring. You can see coiled around here. Got rust covered spring. It's little wound spring on there. Just take the tension off of that. You can pop this end out and relieve it, and then it just slides out of the bracket. So that made it a little bit easier to where we can now move this freely, because what I don't want to do, and that looked kind of violent, but I am being careful not to tear that boot. What I don't want to do is disconnect this hydraulic line that's going winding back into the distance there, just because I don't want to have to bleed the brakes. So we're gonna skip that part, because we can tie this up out of the way and take this this bracket off that holds the pads, and the rotor just comes right off. Then we can get at those bolts, and if all goes well, it'll pop right out of there. But I will tell you beforehand, a lot of times it doesn't. This stuff gets seized in there, but who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky. If we don't, yeah, you're gonna get to see what to do in that case. Okay, so we've got these 2 bolts out. They're 18 millimeter across flats. It seems like that's pretty popular for suspension and brake stuff. And as you know, you can imagine would seem like something you'd get in every socket set or wrench set, but that's always the one they leave out, isn't it? 18 millimeters. Just got to go buy it individually, it seems. So anyway, they're in there pretty good, and there's not a lot of room between the backside of the mount and where your other suspension components are. So I had to get a breaker bar and a socket to get them loose. You know, nothing too tricky in there, but I mean, there's not a lot of room, and I couldn't use a really long breaker bar because it hit the inside of the wheelhouse. Once I got it going, if you got a ratcheting box end of some type, that makes it a whole lot faster, because there's probably room to get just a regular socket and and ratchet in there, but you know, you can't get as full of a turn because the head is kind of big and it's kind of in the way. You know, they don't give you a whole lot of room, but however you get it loose, get loose. We're cleaning these up later on. We're going to set these aside. You can see they had some looks like some thread sealant on it there, thread locker on it. It's a weird color. I imagine that's going to be some medium strength stuff, because it wasn't that I had to heat it or anything to get it out. Yeah, no way that's anti-seize. That would be kind of crazy to put that on brake parts. But whatever, we're gonna look that up in the manual and put it back the way it is and torque it to spec. Set those aside so we can clean them later. I did, you know, this is the bracket itself with the pads that kind of snap in there. I did put the bolt that holds the caliper back in just to show you. That's the first thing we took out, just show you kind of how it goes in there. Just threads into this end hole here. And as you saw, the caliper itself pivoted up out of the way on this. So we'll take this off, put it aside here, and I want to show you, you know, I mentioned that we would put the caliper up out of the way. I mean, nothing trick about it. I just zip tied it up out of the way. I just don't want it hanging on that hydraulic line, because that's going to cause you all kinds of problems. So nothing fancy. You know, you could use tape, whatever, electrical wire, whatever, just to kind of keep it up in there. It's just kind of standing on its tail right there, not hurting it, but it's out of our way. So here's the big reveal. Nothing holding this on. There it is. That's the part we're gonna take care of. We'll clean all this up too. We'll put some anti-seize on the back side of this so it doesn't stick to that, which it didn't stick at all. I was kind of surprised. Sometimes those are kind of frozen on there, but this one's not. So let's set this down somewhere it won't get damaged, and we'll start to work on getting these 4 bolts out. So you can see there's a couple holes in here. That's for access to these bolts that go into the back here that I know you can't really see. You can see that one right there, but there's one kind of in each corner of that flange. It's roughly square, so you know, you're going to stick a socket. You see my finger going through there. I'm going to stick a socket through there and pull it out. I mean, I suppose you could probably get a couple of them with a wrench, but yeah, this is impact gun time, unfortunately. And like I said, we may have an issue separating this. This has been on here since since Clinton was president. So been a while there. So we're going to find out. Okay, real important that I wanted to mention before you start, you know, banging away on these bolts and trying to pull this thing off of here. The reason for replacing it in our case was this electrical connection to the hub itself, where the wheel speed sensor is. Now, it's almost impossible to see what's going on here. There's a plug back here in the shadows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you off the car how it works, because you're gonna fiddle around with this in the dark or in the shadows somewhat, even with good light, and you need to really see what's going on to understand how to take it apart, because that's something you don't want to break. It's little, I don't know, like 18, 20 gauge wires or something in there, and it's pretty easy to tear it up. I believe they make replacement pigtails for this, but you know, why break it if you don't have to? But just want to show you, you know, get that out of the way and just kind of tuck it up somewhere where it won't get struck with a hammer or whatever you're doing, because we're probably gonna have to wail on this thing to get it loose, because we got the bolts out. It may come off, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm gonna show you how that how that clip goes together when we take it apart, because there's a little retainer that should be in there that you need to pull out first. It keeps it from just falling out. It's not hard to do, but you can't see it really good, and I'll show you how to get it out of there. This is something that GM tends to like quite a bit with a lot of these things, and they cause some headaches if you can't figure out which way to pull or push. Well, that went a little bit easier than I expected. I did take those bolts out of there. I'll show you what they look like. There's 4 of them. They're 10 millimeter cross flats too, so I couldn't get my 1/2-inch drive impact stuff in there, so I had to go 3/8, but they weren't as tight as I expected them to be. So these didn't put up much of a fight getting those 4 bolts. You can see there's 1 up here in this corner, 2, 3, 4 going around there, holding this thing on. This is how it was mounted, like that you saw previously. There's that little plug where that pigtail goes into, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you can see why you might have a problem. Lots of corrosion rust. I mean, people have had to heat bang and just go crazy to get these out of here. You know, obviously you're not want to hit on something you care about, because you're loading it in a way that it wasn't designed to handle. But we're throwing this in the recycle bin, so we don't care. But I didn't have to put up too much effort. I mean, you know, partially selecting the right tool, and this BFH here, a couple love taps with it, and I saw it start coming loose. And you know, once you see the daylight poking through there, it's over. It's coming out. But we're gonna make sure we're gonna clean that up really good and put some anti-seize, not on the bolt area at all, but on the mating area where it goes into this circular area, kind of plugs into that socket, and then on the face of this, because I don't want them to get you know, to corrode and get kind of frozen. The bolts, absolutely not. You know, we're going to make the bolts torque to spec, and some medium strength thread locking compound on there, because we do not want those coming off, because that's your wheel, man. It's going to come right off and pass you by, and you end up in a ditch. But back to what we were talking about a second ago. Here's that plug. So I have to move the camera in a little bit here so you can see what's going on. The cable's only so far. It does just snap in there. Okay, that's easy, because you can see you push the tabs in and it'll pop back out. If I can do it one-handed, but it just comes back out. Now, that's great, but you don't want that popping out when you're going down the road, or they don't want it falling out when they're building it up in Lansing years ago. So this has a little, if you can see that or not, that little green piece I showed you a second ago. When this is plugged in, when it's snapped in like we had it before, this little green piece kind of threads in and keeps it. It's like a retainer. So that's step one. When you see it in there, you're going to pull this out, this green piece. You're going to pull that out first, and then that'll allow you to push this tab down that's sticking out. You see it kind of jutting up there. Kind of compress that. Get my finger on the back side of it, maybe. You're going to compress it down and squeezing it together, and it'll pop right out of that socket. If this is still in there, it will not move. So you're going to be really upset if you don't take this out first. So look for something like that. I believe they're usually a contrasting color, yellow or green or something like that, so you can see, hey, this isn't part of the plug, and take this out first. It's really just like think of it like a lock washer or something like that. You know, it's just a device to keep this from, you know, popping back out. Because unless it's completely snapped in there, it's kind of a visual check too. Hey, I don't have it attached all the way if that green thing's hanging out of there. So anyway, that's what that's for. Make it easy on yourself. Don't tear these things up. You don't want to have to be splashing wires and stuff in, because it'll give you an ABS error code. All right, went ahead and cleaned that up. Got a little wire wheel on an angle grinder here, and you know, wear your eye protection, and clean that out really good. It's corroded pretty bad, so did that. Took the attaching bolts, kind of did the same thing on a bench mounted wire wheel that I have. Get those threads clean so we can get an accurate torque reading, because this is a through hole, so they're getting corrosion in to the back side of that. Those threads were not dirty. I'm not gonna really do anything with those. I don't want to run a tap through them, but basically it's ready to put it back together. We'll put some anti-seize on there, so this doesn't stick when we plug it back in. Not on the threads. Now we'll put it all around the face of this, keeping it out of, make sure it doesn't get in the holes, and then around this chamfered edge and down in this bore here. You know, brand don't matter, but that's what we got here. Put some of that on there and put the bolts in, torque them down. We'll be ready to go. They, if you're in the U.S., they're 52 pound-feet, foot-pound, whatever way you want to say it, and you know, you can figure it out on your own. For the metric units, I can't remember what it is, but definitely use a torque wrench. That's there for a reason. Get them tight. Don't guess. It's brakes. Definitely life and death there. Okay, got the bracket with that holds the pads in, that the caliper mounts to, on there with those bolts that go through the back. Those are the larger 18 millimeter across flat bolts. Those get torqued to 32 foot-pounds, pounds-feet. And one thing I did forget to tell you, on all the bolts, I'm putting a little bit of this on there just to keep them from backing out. And I've wire brushed them, cleaned them up real good too. So just kind of corroded, nasty. Want to try to do it as safe and as good as we can. Okay, we're getting ready to put the caliper back on, and I'm not going to cut it loose yet because I want you to see what's going on here. This is the piston that pushes against the brake pads, you know, clamps them together. This kind of set up where the parking brake is also pushing the piston in and out. There's an adjustment on this. This piston itself kind of threads in and out, and as the brakes wear. Now, should be, in a perfect world, pull this off of here and slide it back on. Well, you know, this stuff does have a little bit of a drag on it, so you need to loosen that up a little bit, or you will have one heck of a time getting it to slide back on there. The way you do that is with a little tool like this. You can see it's got a couple pins on it, and there's two different patterns on this one, and I've got other ones that have they're like a cube, and they have 6 patterns on them. In our case here, the one that fits this piston, you can see there's 2 little like half round slots in there on the top of that. The 2 close together are the one we need. So what I did off camera here was I put that tool in there put those pins on those little notches and turned it in a half turn so it would go on here easier. And I don't want to go crazy and retract it all the way, because then, you know, then this brake isn't going to work till it adjusts 50 times. So it's just enough to make it to where we can get the brake caliper back on. Otherwise, you're going to fight it, and it's, you know, you don't want to be pounding on it with a hammer or anything. So that's what we did, and we're going to put a little bit of grease on the caliper pins themselves, you know, something like that, and bolt it back up, torque that last bolt, and really hook the emergency brake cable up, and we're done, ready to put the wheel back on. Well, you know what they say, that's all, folks. We are at the point, we're just going to put the wheel back on, set her back down on the ground, and should be ready to go. Hopefully we cleared out that ABS code. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Remember, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Tell your friends, and we'll see you next time on Smith Motorworks. Thank you.